The most common contractual mistakes. Episode 3, Do It Yourself in the Age of Google. Part of the series Global Business Law in 20 Minutes with yours truly, Federico Vasoli.
Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent.
Hello, everyone. This is Federico Vasoli, Italian lawyer, originally managing partner of the MTV Global with offices in Singapore, Malta, and Vietnam.
And I am Natalia Łowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator based in Warsaw, Poland.
Hi, everyone. Mac Pierre-Louis here, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator working throughout Texas and Florida. All right. So we're back on this new topic where we're talking about the most common contractual mistakes, but this time asking the question whether or not you should do it yourself in the age of Google, because everything can be found on Google these days, right? On the internet or whatever server you might use, Bing or Yahoo search. Are they even in power anymore? But we're talking about this because a lot of people, especially non-lawyers, seek to use the power of the internet to try to resolve everything. But while you might be able to find tutorials on making cupcakes or tutorials on even how to dye your hair a certain color, when it comes to legal issues and specifically contractual disputes and handling them and the best way to approach them, that might be a bad idea. And we're here to tell you why. So, Federico, everything is available on the internet these days. Why waste money on a lawyer or a mediator even to help you with your contractual disputes if everything can just be found online by Googling it?
First of all, not everything is free on the internet. We lawyers know that there are some databases that contain judicial decisions, scholarly, in-depth studies that are not free, and they complement what the law says. So you can find the law, the statutory norms on the internet. You can find contractual templates if you're looking for, if you want to draft a contract online, and most likely you will find them for free, but you don't know what you find. And do you have the right questions? That is, I made a very crazy example before when we were offline. I said, I could probably find a way on the internet on how to build a SpaceX and go to Mars. But will I be able to do it? I don't have the necessary, first of all, I don't have the structure to do it. And mind you, this is not, you cannot possibly compare SpaceX, Tesla with a law firm, but still a law firm does have resources, structure, people that are educated, that are experienced, that have seen a lot of stuff, especially when negotiating and drafting contracts, that nobody else have seen in their experiences. Like, I have not seen the same stuff that my clients have seen. I have not been in their factories on a daily basis. I've not lived and worked in their offices almost on a daily basis like they have done. So this is quite an important thing to stress. So if you're not familiar with a certain environment, you don't know if what you find is the right answer. Secondly, you don't know if the answer, even if it's right, is complete. I remember when I was at school, and probably most of you will remember that you may give the right answer, and then the teacher will say, yes, but you didn't elaborate on the answer. You said yes. And then what? Or no, but why no? So I remember at school that was quite frustrating. You needed to elaborate on that. And most importantly, do you have the right questions? I think back in episode 1, we mentioned the importance of having a contract in the first place. And in episode 2, we discussed, and make sure you watch the episode if you did not follow it live, we mentioned the importance of choosing the right jurisdiction in your contract. But how do you know that you need to choose the right jurisdiction if you're not familiar with that? If you have not been in business for a long time and you're not familiar with going to court and representing your company before a judge or serving as a witness. How do you know that you need to find these things and many others? We have discussed these few things, but there are more to cover, perhaps in future episodes. So doing it yourself can be extremely dangerous and can backfire, especially if you find the wrong information you think it is right, if you don't find any information at all, or if the information that you find is outdated and obsolete.
So I would expand on that further, because I would disagree with part of the question that was being asked. Is it really a waste of money on a lawyer or mediator? Actually, sometimes finding a proper lawyer, finding a proper mediator can save you a lot of money. So in a way, it is like an investment. You benefit from it because you go somewhere where someone saves you a lot of trouble, a lot of stress, sometimes a lot of sleepless nights. And that goes equally to contracts as well, to legal disputes, litigation. And please remember, it is not that you can find really everything on the internet. You can't find on the internet someone who will be accompanying you throughout the entire process consistently. In the internet, you'll find pieces of advice. You'll find samples that might be out of date. You will find things that you will be writing, not understanding its significance or importance. So, is it really a waste of money? To me, not.
So I'll add a couple of things. Federico, you mentioned, I think, that there's resources that the law firm might have access to that the layperson does not. That's actually a big thing. I practiced law for 12 years, and we have access at subscriptions we pay to every month in order to get certain piece of information that the public has no idea about. And a lot of times, pro se's or people who go to court or who might just want to resolve some kind of dispute themselves, they just go off whatever they can find, maybe from one particular website with some free forms. They try their best and just try to wing it. However, you don't know what you don't know. If you do not know that certain documents exist to at least give you an idea of what defenses you might have or what arguments you could make, then you potentially could lead yourself down a very bad path. What's that Abraham Lincoln quote? A person who represents themselves has a fool for a client, right? Because you are not ever going to see the totality of everything that you should know from your own head. And the only other thing is what Natalia hit on, which is that things on the internet are sometimes dated. Yeah, Google indexes everything on the web, but the document you might be looking at, that PDF you found online, might be from 5 years ago. Do you know how fast the laws change around the world? Only attorneys who have to actually do continuing legal education, who have to stay on top of changing, law, only they will be able to actually give good advice. But that's it on this first topic of this first part of everything is available on the internet. Why waste money on lawyers and mediators? Natalia, if you want to open up the next one.
Yes, with pleasure. And people think in general that lawyers are too expensive. And on the contrary, the internet is free. Is it really like that? And Federico, be the first to answer.
It's a rhetorical question. Lawyers may be expensive, but you pay for what you get. Mind you, you may also pay a lot of money for a lousy lawyer that markets him or herself very well. And that does happen, like in any industry. But the costs of not having a properly drafted agreement in place, and I have seen that in too many cases now, too many instances, are way higher than what you would pay a normal lawyer in lawyers' fees. So let me give you a positive example, because we've been negative, we've been criticizing. But let me give you a good example. Recently, I worked for a German client of ours that is a big multinational and sells certain machineries all over the world. And they want to include, so they already know what they want, which is a big plus. They want to include in their sale and purchase agreements a retention of title clause. This is an example that I have made a few times already because I really like this case. So first of all, not all businesses know what a retention of title clause is. And I'm not going to tell you now. Probably you already know. I mean, you two guys, Natalia and Mike, of course, you know. The fellow lawyers that are listening to this podcast, of course, know. But let's save it for another time. In any case, a retention of title clause is a relatively technical topic and requires certain formalities. They wanted to sell these machineries to Vietnam from Germany according to a German governed sale and purchase agreement. So the sale and purchase agreement between the German seller and the Vietnamese buyer was governed by German law, not Vietnamese law, not English law, not any other law, German law. However, the retention of title clause to be valid requires that it is drafted according to certain formalities. In this specific case, in Vietnam, we need to register the clause with a certain authority in Vietnam. However, in Vietnam, they don't speak English officially. There are a lot of people that speak very good English, but the authorities do not. Maybe they do, but officially they don't. So you have to have it translated into Vietnamese. But do you only translate the clause or do you translate the entire agreement? And who translate the agreement? We said perhaps offline that in Latin, translate and to betray have a common root. So translating a legal document that has a vital importance for a business to a completely alien language like Vietnamese, which is an extremely difficult and totally different language in the way it is structured compared to Germanic and Latin-based languages like German, is a very risky exercise. So they needed to have the right people that spoke the language Vietnamese, not just as scholars, but or academics in literature, but that know the legal implications of the jargon that they use, and then go to the right authority. They know what authority they need to appeal, and they need to follow a certain procedure, these professionals in Vietnam, in order to make sure that the retention of title clause is valid and enforceable in Vietnam, even if the contract is governed by German law. So you may know, if you're in business, have been in business for a while, if you have discussed with lawyers in the past, you may know from experience that you need to choose a governing law. This is already a big step because I have seen way too many contracts drafted, perhaps even in a nice way, but without containing a proper governing law and jurisdiction clause. This is something that 70% of the times is not there in a normal contract. So you need to know that you have to have a clause that states that. But at times, in specific cases like this of the retention of title clause, you need to have it translated into a foreign language and registered with a certain authority in order for it to be perfectly valid and enforceable. Otherwise, it would not. So in this case, I said, okay, we need to find the right lawyer, somebody that is experienced in both European businesses and Vietnamese businesses. There are several lawyers. I happen to be one of them. And I was the one helping them with my team in Vietnam. This is a very positive example to make, where the internet serves as a tool and then the professional steps in. So I would like to add one more point. That is, I'm absolutely favorable to, as a lawyer, I'm absolutely in favor of technology. We are using technology right now. We are connected thanks to technology. We're not backward people that are opposed to technological changes. But you need to use the tools with your knowledge and with your expertise. And everybody does their job. You have the engineers, the lawyers, the doctors, the personal trainers, and so on.
On the internet, which is free, you can find things of general nature on many occasions, whereas like everybody can already have experience with or have knowledge of, lawyers tend to specialize nowadays. So in order to find someone of really detailed expertise in certain fields, with proper experience, with proper commercial approach and acumen, you shouldn't rather rely on internet, but go to a place that you know that is recommended, that you know that people have experience in the matter that you are actually seeking advice for. That might actually mean that for a contract regarding deliveries, you will be going somewhere else than for drafting a contract regarding IT. Law specializes in so many different directions, in so many different areas. There will be specific clauses necessary, for example, for all the things connected with medical things, medical supplies, but also medical services that you might be contracting. There will be special laws regarding mining. There will be special laws regarding waste disposal, and these can be also very strict. There will be special laws regarding ordering things within the public domain. This is what Europe is very much concentrating on. And you need to be aware of that, because sometimes you can fall into the trap that you can find a perfect contract in the internet. Suits you quite well. You think you understand it, but then have you thought that it can fall within the scope into the anti-monopolistic rules? Have you thought of the fact that part of it can be invalid because of the fact that the law already changed and it contradicts a particular provision that has just been added? And what if you didn't cover something because the internet example wasn't really tailored to your needs? Think about it all before really deciding that internet will be sufficient when you need professional legal advice.
So let's say you're sold, right, on the idea that, okay, I should hire an attorney versus do it yourself on the internet. With so many lawyers and mediators out there, Federico, how can businesses find the right one, in your opinion, to fit their needs?
It is an extremely difficult question, but a very valid one. I recently read on a lawyer's blog that most clients do not know how to find lawyers. They usually rely on somebody close to them that they trust. A lawyer-client relationship is based on trust. It is fundamental to have this trust, also because of the nature of the information that you exchange. And most of them find their lawyers through their family. So even if they're big companies, sometimes they find their lawyers because either they have somebody in the family that works in that domain, or because they have somebody in the family that knows somebody else who is a lawyer, attorney. And that's not always the right way to find a lawyer. Mind you, it does touch on the trust issue, which is fundamental. And that's where perhaps large firms that are very good at marketing their services have a problem. Because eventually, regardless of how big a firm is, and even if a very large law firm can afford, of course, better insurance coverage for their clients, a larger staff to serve their clients 365 days a year or 66, 24/7, all over the world, etc. Eventually, it all boils down to personal trust between the lawyer and the client. So it is an extremely difficult question to answer, but I would say look for the qualifications, not just the formal ones. Probably they are the least important ones, the formal qualifications. Probably the experience that a lawyer has. And this is where lawyers should work, like you and probably us, like we are doing, in telling what you're specialized in. Are you looking for a lawyer, for a family lawyer in Poland? Okay, maybe trusting an Italian lawyer in Vietnam is not exactly the right idea, but I may know somebody that is experienced in this field. So I would look for the past experiences of lawyers, perhaps not focusing too much on the academic qualifications that many have. Many people have double degrees, many people have master degrees and so on, and not focusing that much on the brand names of the firms. Perhaps focusing on the concrete experience on the ground can be the right starting point to establish a relationship, a trust relationship with a lawyer, and then assess whether he or she is the right one for you. But it's a difficult question indeed.
And let me add to that. On the internet, you can find valuable information about your lawyer, the one that you want to choose. You can look at the Google review. Usually, behind the Google reviews, there will be people who really had experiences with this lawyer. You can look into the social media on LinkedIn, what input of professional value this particular person had. You can sometimes listen to the recordings they've made, podcasts, video recordings, and judge by yourself using your own preferences.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. So we will be back with future episodes. Please return back here. Mac Pierre-Louis signing out.
Natalia Łuskaczajka.
Federico Vasoli, bye-bye.